Welcome to the MPERS webinar series. The presentation today is the 2011 tier for 2011 tier employees of MoDOT, Uniform and Civilian Patrol, and MPERS. My name is Mary Jordan. I am a Senior Benefit Specialist here at MPERS, and I will be your moderator today. Here's some important information we want you to know about today's presentation. The content of this presentation is targeted specifically for 2011 tier members of MPERS. Additional webinar installments targeting the other plans administered by MPERS can be found on the Education on Demand section of our website, mpers.org. Before we get started, I want to take care of a few housekeeping items. I want to let you know that your microphones have been muted, and this is for the benefit of all attendees. However, you still have the opportunity to participate. You can type questions in at any time during the webinar, but due to time constraints, we will address a sampling of those questions at the end of the webinar if you want to stay on the line. If not, a recording of the webinar, including the question and answer section, will be made available at a later date. But remember to ask those questions as you think of them throughout the webinar. If we don't have time to get to your question during the webinar, we will contact you directly by email after the presentation. I would also like to mention the attachments. There are attachments available in the handout section. These include the plan handbook, a 2011 tier brochure, and a copy of the presentation slides. You can download them from here at any time during the webinar, or they can be found on our website later. The last item I want to mention is that a short survey will be provided at the end of the presentation today and also in a follow-up email, but you only need to complete it once. We do encourage you to give us your comments. This will allow us to make adjustments to our presentations so that we can enhance your experience at future presentations. Now, before I hand off the presentation, let me introduce your presenter, Jamie Mullen. Jamie is also a Senior Benefit Specialist here at MPERS, and he specializes in retirement and disability counseling. Jamie, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you very much, Mary, and thank you everyone for attending. This is the 5th installment of our webinar series, and the goal with this webinar, as in all webinars in our series, is that we want you to know and understand your retirement benefit. We're going to discuss a lot. The topics are listed here. It's a lot of information in a condensed amount of time. We're going to be focusing specifically on the 2011 tier. Before we do that, we're going to set up what type of plan this is, that being a defined benefit plan. With regards to the 2011 tier, we're going to talk about the contributions, how this plan is funded. We're of course going to mention how you become eligible to retire and how much your benefit will be. Also, once you start receiving a benefit, you'll receive annual cost of living allowances, so we'll explain that. You also have different choices for receiving your benefit. You could potentially leave a survivor benefit to a loved one upon your death. Hopefully we can impress upon you the overall value of this benefit as well. And then lastly, there's a lot of other considerations when it comes to retirement, so we'd like to point you in the right direction so that you can put together the entire piece of the retirement puzzle together in your particular situation. So we're going to start with the defined benefit plan. That's what MPERS is. It's a defined benefit plan. The way that type of plan works is simple. You simply work and accrue service credit. Once you've worked long enough, you become vested in the plan, which means that you're eligible to receive a future benefit at some point once you hit retirement eligibility. You keep working longer. Eventually you do retire, and we pay you a benefit once per month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. Now, how much is that benefit? Obviously, that's very important. Well, your benefit is based on a multiplier established in Missouri law, and that's why it's a defined benefit plan, because your lifetime benefit will equal your service credit times your average salary times a plan multiplier. So the theme here will be the longer you work and the higher your pay, the higher your lifetime retirement benefit through MPERS will be. Kind of behind the scenes, how this future benefit is funded. MPERS collects contributions from your employer and from you. We pool these contributions and invest them with a long-term investment perspective so that we can pay you a retirement benefit eventually when you become eligible. Advantages of a defined benefit plan. Well, number one, it's your employer, not you, that bears the risk of investing. In other words, whatever time it is that you decide to retire, the conditions of the marketplace are irrelevant to how much we're going to pay you for the rest of your life. Remember, your benefit is defined based on that formula, which takes into account your service and your average salary. Also, this benefit is paid for lifetime. So in other words, there's no danger of you outliving this retirement benefit. We pay you once per month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. Now, we here at MPERS, we administer 3 defined benefit plans. There's the closed plan, the year 2000 plan, and the 2011 tier. So you may hear those plans mentioned throughout your working career. The plan that you're in is based on the date that you were hired. So, of course, now we're going to talk solely on the 2011 tier. Before we get into the specifics of the 2011 tier, I wanted to mention to you, kind of as a backdrop to this entire discussion, I'd like for you to be thinking about not only this MPERS defined benefit retirement plan, but also the other pieces that will make up your entire retirement security eventually when you do retire, that being Social Security and personal savings. This MPERS defined benefit plan, if you have a lot of years in state government, is going to replace a good percentage of your average salary. Social Security will also replace a good percentage of your average salary. And you'll get a notion as to what level of income replacement those 2 benefits will replace by running estimates of your benefits under both of those programs. Now, any shortfall that you might realize, depending on the standard of living that you wish to maintain as a retiree, you'll have to make that up with personal savings. We, as state employees, have a great tax advantage savings vehicle in the Missouri Deferred Compensation Plan. That would be one of many options that you can use to save on your own to supplement your future retirement. All right, so now on to the 2011 tier. The 2011 tier is for members that were hired by the state for their very first time on or after January 1 of 2011. The vesting requirement is 5 years of service. Now, there was a Senate Bill 62 signed by the governor on July 14th of 2017. This reduced the vesting requirement in the 2011 tier from 10 years to 5 years. Now, under the law, you must be employed on or after January 1 of 2018 in order to qualify for the 5-year vesting provision. Contributions. So, as I mentioned to you, the retirement system collects contributions from your employer and from you, the employee. We pool those contributions and invest them so that we can pay benefits in the future. The employer pays the largest percentage of the contributions. Your employee contribution as a member of the 2011 tier is 4% of your gross pay. So that's a pre-tax deduction. So in other words, your taxable income will be reduced by the 4% that you contribute to this plan. Now, the money that you send to this plan is held in an account and it accrues interest annually. Now also, this is your money. So if you separate service before reaching normal retirement eligibility, you could request a refund of your employee contributions. Now, if you're vested when you leave employment and you receive a refund of your employee contributions, you then forfeit any future retirement benefit that you might have had payable through MPERS. However, if you're not vested and you don't plan on returning to state employment, that may very well be a good option for you to receive a refund of all the money that you've put into the plan. When you receive a refund of your employee contributions, you can roll those contributions over to another eligible retirement plan so that you can delay taxation on that money. The other option is to receive those contributions in cash, in which case you would pay taxes and a potential early distribution penalty on that money in the year in which you received it. Okay, so now I'd like to talk about retirement eligibility. In other words, when can you start drawing a lifetime monthly benefit from MPERS? Before I do that, though, I want to distinguish between 2 classes of members. The first class I'm going to refer to as active employees. So these are people that work long enough to become vested. When they separate employment, they are immediately eligible for early or normal retirement, and they retire within 65 days of separating employment. The other class of employee is what we call a vested former employee. So this type of employee worked long enough to become vested. They then left state employment, but they were not yet eligible to retire. So they become what's called a vested former employee. So in other words, they're retiring more than 65 days after they've separated employment. Now, this Senate Bill 62 provides that vested former members of the 2011 tier will not be eligible to receive service credit for sick leave accruals. They will not be awarded a survivor benefit at the time of death, but rather at the time when the member would have been eligible for normal retirement. And they will have a 2-year delay for receiving their first cost of living allowance as a retiree rather than a 1-year delay. So in other words, the active employees do not have those additional restrictions, whereas a vested former employee would be subject to those 3 restrictions just mentioned. Okay, so now normal retirement for active employees. Active employees of MoDOT, Civilian Patrol, and MPERS become eligible for normal unreduced retirement at age 67, provided they have at least 5 years of service, or under what's called the Rule of 90. This is the point at time where they're at least age 55, but the combination of their age plus their service totals 90. Uniformed Patrol employees, active Uniformed Patrol employees, qualify for normal retirement once they are age 55 with at least 5 years of service. Active Uniformed Patrol employees are subject to mandatory retirement at age 60. Normal retirement for that second class of members, the vested former employees, they are eligible for normal retirement once they reach age 67 with 5 years of service, and that would be the same for civilian and uniform employees. Early retirement eligibility. With early retirement, you can collect a benefit, a lifetime monthly benefit, in advance of your normal retirement date. However, when you take early retirement, your benefit is reduced by 0.5% for each month that you're retiring in advance of your normal retirement date. So, for active employees of MoDOT, Civilian Patrol, and MPERS, they'll reach early reduced retirement once they're at least age 62 with 5 years of service. There's no early retirement provision for active Uniformed Patrol employees. There's also no early retirement provision for that second class of members that we refer to as vested former employees. Now, how much is your benefit? This is that benefit formula that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, and then also keep in mind that general theme of the longer you work and the higher your pay, the higher your lifetime benefit will be. So this is what we refer to as your base benefit, the amount that you receive once per month for the rest of your life. So we take your credited service. This equals the time that you've worked for the state of Missouri. It also includes your unused sick leave if you're an active employee transitioning directly into retirement. It also includes time that you have potentially purchased or transferred, and I will mention what your options are for potentially transferring or purchasing extra service for credit into the retirement plan. So we have your credited service. We multiply that by your final average pay. Your final average pay is the average of your highest consecutive 36 months of pay, no matter where in your entire pay history this happens to fall. So in other words, we look at every paycheck you've ever received. We isolate the 36 months in a row that are the highest consecutively, and then we average that amount. By and large, that's usually the last 3 years of employment when you're earning the most money. However, that's not always the case. You might have earned a lot of overtime at some point earlier in your career, in which case we would go back to when you were earning more money to calculate your lifetime retirement benefit. Then the multiplier. This is a number that's established by the Missouri legislature. The multiplier for the 2011 tier is 0.017. So those 3 factors equal your lifetime monthly benefit. Now, you may qualify for a second benefit. This is referred to as the temporary benefit. This is an extra benefit that you receive until the age of 62 in addition to that lifetime base benefit. In order to qualify for the temporary benefit, you must have retired under normal retirement eligibility before the age of 62. So perhaps you reached the Rule of 90 before the age of 62, or if you're a Uniformed Patrol and you retire at age 55, or any time before age 60, you will receive that extra temporary benefit until the age of 62. The temporary benefit is calculated in a very similar fashion where we take your credited service times your final average pay. The only difference is that the temporary benefit multiplier is 0.008. So here is an example to kind of bring that calculation to life for you. The first thing we're doing is we're looking at the assumptions on the right-hand side of the page. So this member is age 60. They have 30 years of service. They're actively employed. They qualify for what we refer to as the rule of 90. So now they've hit 90 and out is sometimes how it's commonly referred to. And let's just assume that their final average pay ended up being $3,000 per month. So the calculation is pretty straightforward. We take the 30 years of service times the $3,000 average pay times that plan multiplier of 0.017, and they receive $1,530 a month for the rest of their life. Now, because they qualified for normal retirement before the age of 62, they get a second benefit until the age of 62. We take their 30 years of service times their average salary times the temporary benefit multiplier of 0.008 to equal an extra second benefit of $720 a month until the age of 62. So their total retirement benefit to start with, their base and their temporary, equals $2,250 a month. Again, based on these assumptions of the 30-year employee with an average salary of $3,000 per month. Now, if you look at that in terms of the percentage of your working income that this retirement benefit will replace, for that 30-year employee, they were earning an average of $3,000 per month, and their pension benefit initially is going to be $2,250 per month. So that would equate to 75% income replacement for that 30-year employee with that temporary benefit. Then once they turn 62 and that temporary benefit has gone away, the base benefit will replace 51% of their average salary for the rest of their life. Of course, if you're not going to work quite that long, the percentage of your average working salary that the pension benefit will replace would be lower, depending on the total number of years of service that you had. Now, here's an example of early retirement. So this employee is age 62. They have, let's say, 15 years of service. They're actively employed, so they qualify to take that early reduced retirement once they have reached age 62 with at least 5 years of service. And let's also assume that their final average pay was $3,000 per month. So for the early retirement calculation, we take their total years of service times their average pay times the plan multiplier to equal a monthly benefit of $765 per month. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that early retirement involves a reduced benefit. So the reduction again is 0.5% for each month that you're retiring in advance of your normal retirement date. So remember, this employee would have been eligible for normal retirement at age 67. They're retiring at age 62, so they're retiring 5 years in advance of their normal retirement date. 5 years is 60 months. We multiply the 60 months by 0.5% to equal a 30% reduction to their benefit. So the $765 a month reduced by the 30% would equate to a lifetime monthly benefit of $535.50 a month. Now, another reminder that vested former employees, that second class of members that I referred to at the beginning, they are not eligible for early retirement. They would have to wait until age 67 for normal retirement to collect their benefit. Okay, now, once you have retired, you will receive an annual raise on your retirement benefit. This is referred to as the COLA, which is an acronym for Cost of Living Allowance. This lifetime annual raise is paid on the anniversary of your retirement date, and it ranges between 0 and 5%. And technically speaking, it's calculated based on 80% of the change in the consumer price index from one year to the next. So this could vary year by year, and we don't know what future cost of living allowances will be. If we're using history as a guide, it's averaged somewhere close to 2%, but again, we just don't know what future cost of living allowances will be. Now, obviously, the cost of living allowance becomes a very important part to your overall retirement security. Just imagine if you're age 62 and let's say you're collecting a lifetime monthly benefit of $1,500 per month, and you live to be age 80 or 85 or 90 or 95, that initial benefit of $1,500 a month won't buy you near as much goods and services that much later in life due to the natural inflation in the national economy. So that cost of living allowance allows your benefit to keep up with the purchasing power. Another important aspect to your benefit is your payment options. Everyone has different payment options that they can choose. You are not actually going to choose a payment option on your benefit until you actually retire. That'll be part of the process of applying for retirement. But everyone has this first choice available to them. That's called the life income annuity. So again, all of these choices pay you once per month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. The life income annuity pays you the highest benefit possible. There's no reduction applied to your benefit. With the life income annuity, however, upon your death, there's no survivor benefits. The benefit ends upon your death. The second choice is available only to someone that's married. It's called the joint and 50% survivor option. With the joint and 50% survivor option, you accept a lower benefit for the rest of your life, but in exchange for that reduced benefit, if you were to die before your spouse will receive half of your benefit for the rest of their life, no matter how long they live. They would also receive cost of living allowances. The third choice is also available to only a member that is married. That is the joint and 100% survivor option. Here you take an even larger reduction to your benefit. However, if you die before your spouse receives all of your benefit for the rest of their life, no matter how long they live, plus cost of living allowances. Now, with the joint and 50% survivor and the joint and 100% survivor, when you're accepting that reduced benefit, if your spouse happens to die before you, the month following your spouse's death, that reduction to your benefit will be eliminated, and we will, what we call a pop-up, we will start paying you that highest life income annuity amount from that point going forward. Now, there are also other choices called the guaranteed payment options. These are available to anybody, not just to married folks. With a guaranteed payment option, you accept a lower benefit for the rest of your life. However, if you were to die before the system sent you X number of guaranteed payments, then it would be a beneficiary of your choosing that receives the remaining payments from your death until that expiration of the X number of guaranteed payments. The 2011 tier provides for a 120 guaranteed payment option or a 180 guaranteed payment option. So that guarantees benefits for at least 10 years or at least 15 years. And again, you could name anybody to receive that benefit, not just a spouse. The danger there, though, is that the guarantee starts upon your retirement. So if you live longer than the 10-year guarantee or the 15-year guarantee, you, of course, as a retiree, will still receive a benefit for the rest of your life. However, at that point, there would be no benefit to pay a survivor upon your death if you have lived longer than the guaranteed payments. So all of these options, again, you won't make that decision until you actually retire. You should definitely consult with MPERS if you're having difficulty understanding which option might be best for your situation. All of the reduction factors associated with these payment options are detailed in the plan handbook, which you can download from the webinar or from the website. Now, the overall value of your benefit. So again, we've talked about when you become eligible to retire and how your benefit is calculated using similar assumptions. So we're looking at the employee that was age 60 with 30 years of service and they retired under the rule of 90. Let's assume that their average annual cost of living allowance on their lifetime benefit averaged 2%, and their average salary while they're working was that $3,000 average salary. For someone whose salary is averaged around $3,000, they would have contributed roughly $40,000 of their own money to help fund this retirement benefit if you consider the 4% employee contribution. So you can see here after the first year of retirement under these assumptions, this retiree would have collected approximately $27,000 in benefits. After 5 years, they would have collected over $100,000 benefits. After 15 years, that's over $300,000 in benefits. After 25 years, that's close to $600,000 in benefits. And after 30 years, it's over $750,000 in benefits. And so you contrast that to the amount of their own money that they've actually put into the plan, approximately $40,000. You can see that there can be great value in this lifetime monthly benefit. And again, the longer you work and the higher pay, the higher that lifetime monthly benefit will be. All right, so I do want to point you towards some additional resources from our website. The Secure Member Access can be accessed in the upper right-hand corner if you click on the green My MPERS login screen. Once you're in the My MPERS login screen, you're going to have access to all of your personal information, and there's a lot of information there, and I would encourage you to log in and to view it. I would say the most important thing that you can do while you're actively employed is run estimates of what your future MPERS retirement benefit will be. So when you get to the Estimate a Benefit screen, the computer will give you 3 different choices for running estimates. You could simply allow the computer to calculate an estimate based on your first eligible normal retirement date, or you can pick and choose different retirement dates, whether you want to run early retirement or normal retirement or several years beyond normal retirement eligibility. That's for you to pick and choose any number of scenarios that you're interested in running. The third option is, let's say you are vested, you're not yet eligible to retire. You might be considering leaving state employment, but you're not quite sure how leaving before retirement eligibility will impact your retirement eligibility and your future retirement benefit. You can tell the computer, if I leave on this hypothetical date of termination, how then does that affect my retirement eligibility and future benefit amount? So I would encourage you to run these estimates. One thing I'll caution you about is that the estimates take into account your current pay and project that current pay going forward. So it's not assuming any natural pay increases over the course of your career. So as you do start to receive those pay increases, that would be a good time to go back into the system to rerun your retirement estimates to see how the pay increases have affected your overall retirement benefit. Some more information that's very important to consider with regards to this MPERS pension. Obviously, your state employment that you work for MoDOT or Highway Patrol, your benefit eligible service, the more service that you have, the higher your benefit will be. Another way to maximize that lifetime monthly benefit is perhaps by using unused sick leave. We all accrue 10 hours a month of unused sick leave. If we're fortunate to have a balance of that sick leave at the time that we retire, we can convert that towards service credit towards the calculation of our retirement benefit. You'll receive 1 month of retirement credit for every 168 hours of unused sick leave, and you'll receive whole months of credit only. So in other words, there might be a certain number of hours that are just lost if they're not used. Other state service. This would be service that is covered under the Moser system. So MPERS, remember, covers only employees of MoDOT, Highway Patrol, and MPERS. All other state service is covered under the Moser system. So some other state agencies, just as an example, you have the Department of Corrections, the Office of Administration, the Department of Natural Resources, Department of Revenue, and so forth, and about 30 other agencies are covered under the Moser system. Mosers and MPERS calculates benefits the exact same way. In other words, the retirement eligibility is the same, the benefit formula is the same, the payment options are the same. By and large, it's usually to your advantage to transfer and consolidate all of your state service onto one of the two systems so that your highest salary is touching all of your state service so that you can maximize your lifetime monthly retirement benefit. So that's a free transfer between the two systems, and that works in either direction. Other public service. So I mentioned to you earlier that you may potentially be able to buy or transfer other public service. Now this would be non-federal full-time employment that was done in the state of Missouri. So in other words, you might have worked for a city or county government. You could have worked for a public school system. You could have worked for the University of Missouri. Some type of service like that could be either transferred or purchased for credit into MPERS. The laws governing the acquisition of other types of service credit are very specific. So if you have some type of other public service performed in the state of Missouri, I would encourage you to contact the MPERS office to see how you might be able to get credit for that time. Another important aspect to this retirement is reemployment. So eventually when you do retire through MPERS and you're collecting this lifetime monthly benefit, by and large there's no restrictions on reemployment. In other words, you can collect your benefit and then work somewhere else with no interruption to your lifetime monthly benefit. The only restriction is working full-time in a benefit-eligible position covered by either MPERS or MOSERS. If you do accept state employment in a benefit-eligible position covered by either of the two retirement systems, then we would have to freeze your pension while you're reemployed. And then eventually, once you retired again, we would unfreeze your pension and pay you your old benefit exactly the way it was. And if you remained employed for at least one continuous year with another state agency, then you could potentially earn a second retirement benefit based on that new period of service. But what I would like to emphasize here is that there are no other restrictions. In other words, you can work in the private sector, you can work for a city or county government, the federal government, the University of Missouri, and so forth, without any interruption to your MPERS pension. You could even work in what's called a non-benefit eligible state of Missouri job. A lot of times these are referred to as 1,000-hour jobs or 1,040-hour jobs. You can certainly do those without any interruption to your pension. Okay, and then some other considerations outside of the MPERS retirement plan. So if I can take you back to the beginning of the presentation when I mentioned to you that you really should take this benefit into context with your other potential sources of retirement income. So the Missouri Deferred Compensation Plan, as I mentioned, could be a great way to supplement your MPERS pension benefit eventually when you do retirement. They have low-cost, tax-advantaged savings vehicles where you can pick and choose different investment options, and you can pick and choose different contribution levels. And really, the more you save, the better off you'll be in terms of supplementing your overall retirement security. So I would encourage you to visit with the Deferred Comp. They have representatives available to meet with you to make sure that you're on track to meet your retirement savings goals. Medical and life insurance also plays heavily into your overall retirement picture. The employee benefits website for MoDOT and Highway Patrol is listed here on the screen. I would encourage you to reach out to employee benefits so that you can find out the cost of retaining these coverages and also the requirements for retaining those coverages. Taxes plays an important part in your retirement benefit as well. One thing to know is that you're no longer going to pay payroll taxes on your monthly retirement benefit. So in other words, there won't be any Social Security tax or Medicare tax taken out of your pension benefit. You will, however, owe federal income tax and potentially state income tax as well. There is a public pension exemption in the state of Missouri. I would encourage you to consult with a qualified tax professional or the Missouri Department of Revenue to see if you might qualify for that public pension exemption in the state of Missouri. And then lastly, Social Security. SSA.gov is a great resource for you. Once you've logged into your account with Social Security, you can view estimates of your future Social Security benefit, either early reduced Social Security or normal unreduced Social Security. So once you have your MPERS retirement estimates, your Social Security estimates, and you have an idea as to the type of income that your deferred compensation could be providing you, that will give you a good picture as to whether or not you're on track to meet your overall retirement security needs. Eventually, when you get close to actual retirement eligibility, we're going to send you an invitation to our pre-retirement seminars. This is where we travel across the state to meet with you locally to go over in great detail all of this information and more. You can view our website, MPERS.org, every single piece of information with regards to the retirement and disability benefits that we administer. You can find your answers to your questions at MPERS.org. Or if you would like to email a benefits specialist, we can certainly provide you with a quick answer to your questions. You can reach a benefits specialist by email by emailing MPERS@MPERS.org. Now, I would like to pull my coworker Mary Jordan back into the conversation, and she was going to list off some of the questions that we've had from the audience. Mary?
Okay, thanks, Jamie. The first question we have is, when you're ready to retire, how far in advance do you have to notify MPERS?
There are retirement application deadlines. You have to apply no later than a full month in advance of your normal retirement date or your early retirement date, whichever date you've decided to retire. You must apply no later than a full month in advance of that date. You can, however, apply as early as 4 months in advance of your intended retirement date.
Okay, the next one, what happens to your vacation time when you retire? Can you use it for additional service credit like you do your sick leave?
Your vacation time or your annual leave is completely separate from the calculation of your MPERS pension benefit. This is between you and your employer. If you do have a vacation time balance at the time that you separate employment, your employer will pay you for that unused balance. But there are some different options that you have for accepting payment for that unused annual leave that you should consult with your employer about.
Okay, next question is, if you take early retirement, will that early retirement reduction go away when you hit normal retirement age?
So the answer to that is no. Once you've decided to take early reduced retirement, that early retirement reduction factor applies to your benefit for the rest of your life. However, once you do start drawing early retirement, you will receive a raise annually for the rest of your life.
Okay, next question. So there's a public pension exemption for state of Missouri, taxable income. Does the benefit that they receive from MPERS qualify for that exemption?
Yes, MPERS would be considered a public pension. And so there does exist a public pension exemption in the state of Missouri. We are not tax advisors here at the MPERS Retirement Plan, so we really do encourage you to visit with the Department of Revenue or a tax professional in the state of Missouri to see if you might qualify for either a full or partial exemption from Missouri income tax on your public pension.
Okay, next question. If somebody retires and then they go back to work for that employer after retirement, can any of that money, any of that service go into calculating their benefit?
Okay, so I believe we did address this, but let me make sure I get the question right. So this is someone that was working for either MoDOT or Patrol or MPERS. They qualified for a retirement benefit, they retired, started collecting their benefit, and then they returned to state employment in a benefit eligible job. So under this circumstance, we must freeze their MPERS pension while they've returned to state employment. Then eventually, once they've retired again, we will unfreeze their original retirement benefit and pay that to them exactly the way it was. They must remain employed for at least a year when they return to a state employment in a benefit eligible position in order to have an additional second retirement benefit added to that original benefit.
Okay, next question. So MPERS or employees contribute 4% of their salary towards their retirement, but can they contribute more than the 4%?
Right, so there is no opportunity to contribute more than the 4% of your pay. So remember, MPERS is collecting contributions from not only you, the employee, but also your employer. We are then investing, we're pooling those contributions and investing them with a long-term perspective so that we can pay benefits to not only current retirees, but eventually to you when you qualify and start receiving a retirement benefit. And your benefit, again, is based on your service and salary. It's not based upon how much money you've put into the plan. It's based on your average salary and the total amount of service that you have. So if you have a desire to contribute more of your money towards your future retirement security, that's when you could start looking at additional savings vehicles like the Missouri Deferred Compensation Plan, or perhaps an IRA that you've set up outside of state employment. So very good question. Thank you for asking that.
Okay, last question we have is, can an employee get to their contributions or take out their contributions while they're still working?
No. The only way an employee could access the contributions that they've put into the plan is if they separate employment and then request a refund of their employee contributions. Now remember, if you work long enough to be eligible for that MPERS pension benefit where we pay you once per month for the rest of your life, then your contributions, the money that you've put into this plan, are then forfeited, in a sense, in exchange for that lifetime monthly retirement benefit. However, if you separate employment before becoming vested, or even after becoming vested but before normal retirement eligibility, you can then choose to forfeit any benefit that you might have had payable in the future through MPERS and then receive a refund of the contributions that you've put into this plan.
Okay, I think that's the last of the questions. So as I mentioned earlier, you do have a short survey after the presentation is ended. Please take a few minutes to give us your feedback. And if you think of any additional questions later, please remember to contact us. So this does conclude our presentation today. We appreciate your attention and participation. We thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day today to learn more about your retirement. And don't forget to check back periodically, as we will be adding additional webinars. Thank you.